Hello amigos and welcome. I am so excited. This is my very first episode in my Hermes series, my Hermes mission series. I guess I can call it that. I don't have a legit name for it, but if you watched my intro, my little pearls of wisdom that I want to share with you, this is just what I've done for myself in my Hermes strategy in order to receive 2 quota bag offers from my Hermes boutique without going the direction in the road less. I followed the road less traveled, amigos, not following what everybody else has done in their so-called journey. Y'all know I'm not a fan of that word, but today, and in today's video for my very first series, we're going to be touching on affordability, because that's very, very importante, muy important. And as well as, like, is it really the right fit for you, right? Because it is an expensive, it's not inexpensive, especially if we are considering, wanting to add a Hermes quota bag specifically into our collection, into our handbag collection. How do I afford luxury specifically, right? That's always an age-old question that a lot of YouTubers get asked. So I want to touch on that, on how I'm able to afford a lot of the luxury handbags in my collection. That's an important factor. And when you are considering purchasing Hermes items, handbags or whatever, this is a very costly brand, right? So affordability is very important. So I think that's like number one. That was the number one thing I had to come to terms with, especially when I wanted to go ahead and decide to now go to the next level of handbags, because I had already done all the other tiers, and now I was gonna now move on to purchase an Hermes handbag. First and foremost, I'm not a mama Warbucks. I'm not a mama Warbucks, and I am not married to a daddy Warbucks, right? So, apologies if that is offensive to anybody, but I'm not. I am a self-made and I am a self-funded Latina. I am thankful that I have a very, very good job in the financial industry where I do make a good amount of income, but I also bonus. I'm very fortunate that in my position we do get an annual bonus, and those bonuses have helped me in purchasing a lot of the luxury items that you see me share here on my channel. So my husband is retired. He is on a fixed income. So thankfully, I do have expendable income for myself because we don't have any children, and we're already over 50. So I don't have expenses like whereas a lot of families would, especially if you have children, right? So my income pretty much is disposable to where I can purchase the things that I want. I do not have the luxury of making a very, very high dollar salary of like over 200 grand, 300 grand, 400 grand, because, and I think it's very important for me to touch on that, because if you're like me, I watch a lot of other luxury YouTube videos, especially specifically for Hermes, and maybe just even a lot of other luxury content. And sometimes it just seems like the content creators, I feel like it just seems like they have like a tree that grows money, right? Like money doesn't grow on trees, but it seems like sometimes for them money does. And good for them if they are able to have all of this like wealth or funds to just spend and excessively spend, right? Like that's at least some of the videos that I'm watching where it's like, let's have an Hermes haul, let's have a luxury haul for Chanel. Here's another haul, here's another video where they just bought an expensive luxury watch, and they're every other day, like every week, there's like 2 videos of just high dollar amounts where they spent a lot of money. And it seems like maybe you would need a lot of money like that, maybe in a sense to where you would be able, in order to afford these items. I do not fall within that category at all. Good for them that they do fall within the means, whether they have a spouse that buys it for them, whether they have a really, really good job that pays them well, where they have all that expendable income to just consistently purchase so much luxury in large amounts like that. I don't. I do have to watch how I spend the funds that I do. I do have to watch how I spend my expendable income, right? And on what specifically I spend it on, honestly speaking, because that's really, really important, right? Everybody's always curious. Thankfully, the income that I do earn is pretty much mine. It's expendable to where, you know, I will then choose what it is that I have on my wish list or what it is that I want to purchase, and I'll put the funds towards that. My husband does not like luxury. He doesn't care for it at all. He married somebody that happens to love luxury, but that's always been my thing where thankfully my father was the example growing up that, mijita, if you like nice things, and you need to work for them, you need to have the job to work for them, to pay for them. It's not something that I expect my husband to buy me. Has he gifted me a few things here and there? Yes, but these big purchases, these quota bags, they were my funds. I don't have the luxury of having a spouse that says, okay, amor, you want that Birkin, you want that Kelly, let me go and buy this expensive watch, or let me buy shoes, or, you know, certain men's accessories or whatever to help you for your pre-spend. That's never going to happen, and has never happened, and never will happen, right? So it's always been me having to make sure that I set aside the funds for that, so that way I can afford the luxury purchases that I want to buy for myself. So with that said, when I decided to consider purchasing items in Hermes, or building my profile, starting a profile with Hermes, I really thought, is this something that I can afford? Because the handbags are going to, at the time, like 5 years ago, they were probably within like $8,000 range, $9,000 range, you know, around there, 10. It wasn't as much as it is now, because now we have like the price increases and tariffs. I had to step back and think, is this something that I can really afford? And for myself personally, as sometimes I film in my Camochica cave, that's where I have all of my shoes and my handbags. And what did it for me was, when I was thinking, is this something that I can really afford to spend that much on one item? Is I have done a video on this, and they were my Chanel sock sneakers. And I looked at my shelving system where I had my sneakers from Chanel. And I was like mentally counting how much each one of those cost. And each one of those were like $800. I was mentally adding up the cost of what those Chanel sneakers cost me, as well as some other designer shoes that I had purchased throughout the years. And as I added those up, I was like, that totals the cost of a Birkin. So I can't say that I've never spent that much money on luxury items, because I have spent them on shoes. So that really made me think, okay, if I don't buy as many luxury shoes, I cut back on that and like other things, and then I can go ahead, and then I have the money, I make the money to be able to afford, you know, purchasing a handbag. So that was my thought process. That's how for me, came to kind of like that realization that, is this something that I can afford? Also, at the time, this was like around COVID time. So what also helped was I had already been saving a lot of money, because I was planning my husband's 50th surprise birthday party. So I had a lot of money already set aside to, you know, spend on this surprise party when COVID hit. So when COVID hit, weddings, parties, everything got canceled, because we could not get together, right? Like in a, you know, in an event hall or whatever. So we had to cancel that. So I had these funds available to me of money that I had already set aside, that I had been saving for the past year, you know, to use on this party that was no longer going to happen. So that also helped me, because that I had funds for them. That's what helped me. Look at where your money goes. Look at where your money goes. I do that every year. If you pull down your report from your bank account, you can see where all of your money goes, and where it, you know, you add it all up, and it'll tell you what you've been spending it on. So you can look back and say, okay, can I cut back? Can I cut back on my normal spending? Can I cut back on going out to eat? You know, look at those expenses to see where you can save some money. To see if, you know, this is something that you can start to add into your piggy bank to afford it. as I said, I'm in the financial industry, and then I get bonuses. So I also get an annual bonus. And so the money that I get, that helps me be able to afford either a luxury watch or a luxury handbag. So I'm fortunate enough to where, you know, if that's something that I want to focus on for that year or spend it on after I've paid for any other expenses or obligations that my husband and I might have that we need to pay for, I do that first before then I will then indulge myself or treat myself to a really, you know, expensive luxury item. Also, what I've done in the past when I really want to purchase something luxury, especially when I was not in the financial position that I am now, when I had as much expendable income as I currently have, I would sell a lot of my bags, and that's how I moved up the chain in a sense, or moved up the that's how I have moved up in the pyramid of like luxury goods, as far as like how I have purchased handbags, right? Because as I've said before, if you followed my channel, you know, back in the 90s and the late 80s, Liz Claiborne was very popular. So I've just moved up the pyramid as far as, you know, handbags that I have added into my collection and used them and loved them and then sold them and then moved up. So from Liz Claiborne to then Dooney and Burke to Coach to Gucci to, you know, Prada to then Chanel, and then moving up to Hermes. So as I was moving up the chain, up this pyramid, and my tastes were changing, my income was changing, I would have bags and I would sell them, and then I would use those and then sell those to then get the next, you know, brand. You know, from Gucci I moved to Louis Vuitton, then to Chanel, and then now to Hermes. So what's helped me is going into my closet, looking, what do I no longer use, what do I no longer need? Let me go ahead and sell those items, sell that handbag. I've had my time with it and I've let it go. And that's how I've always been. I don't hold on to things for just the sake of holding on to them, especially if there's something that I want to go ahead and put it towards that I know I will use more. So that's another thing that I would say to help you be able to afford as well, because that's helped me specifically in my handbag evolution, right? In my handbag journey, I should say. Those are my tips as what's worked for me, what's helped me, and what I currently do in order to be able to afford not just Hermes, but any other luxury purchases that, you know, that I get, regardless of whether it's Louis Vuitton and Chanel, but specifically, of course, Hermes, because it is the most costly. So I've done those things, as I mentioned. And even if it's not an Hermes quarterback that you want, but maybe it's another Hermes type of style of bag or other Hermes items, you know, I would do the same. I would follow these same principles, these same guidelines to whatever it is that, you know, that you have a goal to purchase. In another video, we will touch on whether I want to get something from the boutique, whether it is a boutique purchase or whether it is specific items where I think it's best to then purchase it, like on the pre-loved market, on the resale market. Aside from affordability, I think another important thing to also consider is it a good fit? Is an Hermes handbag a good fit, as far as specifically like an Hermes Birkin or an Hermes Kelly? Granted, of course, there is no logos on it, right? There's no branding, no big logos like you would find on other brands, but it is getting more common out there where people are able to kind of like tell whether it is a luxury handbag from Hermes. So do you feel safe? Are you do you live in an area where it is safe for you to be carrying it? Whether you're out in public, you know, that's a decision that you have to then make. You have to consider that, because we do hear stories. You know, we do hear stories of people being confronted or, you know, being stolen, whether they're stealing it from their house or whether they, you know, like mugged, that kind of thing. We hear their stories. So are you in an area, do you live in an area where you feel safe carrying that handbag? How often will you use it? Is that something that for you, do you really look at what you spend versus how often that you're going to use it? So you have to be okay with that, to where, you know, okay, yes, I'm okay spending X amount of dollars, thousands of dollars, and I'm going to really make it a point to use it. Or is it a handbag that I am okay with spending those X amount of thousands of dollars and I might not use it as often, right? Because some handbags don't get a lot of wear, and we will tend to grab your other less expensive handbags. Do you reach for those most often? So that's another thing that you really have to consider is, one, are you going to spend the money? Are you okay with either way? Spending the money, and you are going to really put that handbag in your routine of carrying it, or are you okay spending those thousands of dollars on a handbag and you are not going to use it as often? It's not going to be heavily rotated within, how often you change out your bag. So that's really an important point to consider if you are really much of like a cost per wear, because sometimes it's really more of like a cost per eyesight, a cost per sight versus a cost per wear. So you have to take those into consideration. Not is it just safety, but also your cost per wear, cost per sight, and then also you're going to feel comfortable taking it to an office. Is because of the who you work with, are you comfortable taking that handbag into the office, or is this a handbag that you're only going to use on certain times, occasions, when you're just maybe out for dinner with your husband, or you're having a girlfriend lunch, that kind of thing, right? So again, all leads back to cost per wear. Affordability is important, but also is this really a handbag with the quota bag where it's going to really, really work for you? If you're going to be feeling comfortable, carrying it, taking it to work. Are you do you live in an area where you feel safe, taking it out? Especially if you use public transportation, or you live in a city where you walk a lot. In my city, we drive everywhere, right? So I feel comfortable taking my handbag because it's in my vehicle, next to me in the back seat, or next to me on the side, on my passenger side vehicle. And I feel safe taking it out, like when I'm out on my own, or if I'm with my girlfriends and not necessarily out with my husband. So those are things you want to keep in the front of your mind and on your back of your mind, to at least to start you off in regards to, you starting to think, is Hermes the brand for you? Two important things that I considered when beginning my strategy in order to begin my Hermes profile is affordability, if I had the funds for it, and then also to, if the bag was going to work for me, if I was going to feel comfortable taking it out, if I lived in a place where I was comfortable taking this handbag out in public or taking it to work. And those are the two main things that my suggestion would be to consider. I don't want to have these videos run too long, so just kind of keep it simple, basic, and we'll touch on a topic next Thursday. So be sure that you join me back here, so that way you can learn my Hermes strategy and what's worked for me. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them down below in the comments box, and I look forward to engaging and having some fun conversation with all of you. We'll see you back here on Thursday. Hasta la próxima, amigos. Until next class, bye-bye.